Okay, so let's, do you want to call the meeting to order again with the
I would
viewing
like
public?
to call the public safety meeting to order.
And on our agenda is?
One item, street acceptance protocol workshop.
Okay, so we're going to look at this as potentially pieces going into an ordinance and pieces going into an application process for street acceptance.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's the second page of notes that we got from Jess.
Okay.
And these were just copy edits taken care of. These were not constructive comments. It was like where listed, number 4, because it was a draft, like,
Mhm.
you know, some of the numbers were different. I don't know why it says planning, legal, and DPW across the top. Like, with some dots.
I guess it would be all of them working in unison to make this happen.
Yeah, they've been each one of those departments have been contacted.
And so if we're having the city solicitor do this each, I mean, I guess it's not like we're going to be doing a lot, but is that fee that we're charging enough to cover?
Yep, that's how
what-
we came to that number. I discussed it with the city solicitor to be like, how much does it cost? Because the object of this is to make it not such a losing game for us financially.
Yeah.
And since we don't do a stipend with the solicitor, it's on a per use basis, that covers the fee for the solicitor, on both sides of it, looking at it initially, and then making sure that when it goes to the register of deeds, that we're covered.
Okay.
So on the third page, number 9 says a public hearing scheduled for the next city council meeting for street acceptance. Just seems to think that we have limited legal ad money at this time, and the planning department requires applicants to pay for the legal ads for special permits as well as special specific, and should applicant be required to pay for the cost of a public hearing.
Yeah,
So add that cost to.
I would say.
Makes sense if that's also in line with what the FinCom's already doing.
That's what I think so, too.
Yeah, but, I
Okay.
mean, it's not like they're paying any, they're just
No.
paying for the advertising, so.
Right, so that's payable by applicant. We'll add that in. On the next page, it's a block labeled D. So at the bottom, it says a signature block must be provided the planning board to endorse the plans. And this said, not typically required. Do you want this as a new step in the process?
So adding, on the plans a spot for
The
the planning board to
say,
sign off.
we looked at this and we think it's good to go.
Well, they have to look at it anyway, right? And we just haven't had, in the past, we just haven't had them sign it.
No, and
So-
two of the things we were asking for in this document was like a certificate of compliance with the planning board and with the DPW, so that we know that by the time it gets to us, it's already been looked at. That's one of the, you know, things to check off on the way through.
I mean, the one we just did, we got letters from everybody.
Right,
That said we saw it.
Right.
but we didn't get the letters till we asked, you know what I mean? So we should have gotten that the applicant should have gotten that information before it came to us. So that could be part of the application process, is that, you know,
But at this juncture, do you just want a signature, or do you want to know?
I think
if
there's
it's
two
not
things.
signed?
I think we could do a certificate of compliance or signing off by the planning department in some form. This could be the form, or
So
it
could
could
it
be
be-
an actual.
It's going to be something, I mean, for example, if we have a matter before us that we're working cooperatively with the planning board, usually what they'll do is they'll give us a recommendation.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I would be fine if the chair of the planning board just wrote us a letter saying, oh, we've looked at the plans for this street and we feel good with it. 'Cause
We have no reservations with moving forward on
Yeah,
street
like I
acceptance kind of
the only
situation.
thing I wonder is if a signature block on the plans would be an extra expense. I don't know.
Mhm.
And I'm fine with just having them say, we've looked at this, we feel that it's okay, we're
Yeah.
moving this forward.
One of the things I thought about is if we're doing a certificate of compliance with like, yes, I've talked to planning, yes, I've talked to conservation, yes, I've talked to DPW, that if those were all the same, then it
Mhm.
might be easier for the applicant to be like, can you sign this, can you sign this, can you sign this,
Mhm.
just to simplify it for them.
Yeah, and,
Yeah, that's fine.
so leading up to getting it signed off, we want to know if they don't sign it, why. Which I
Exactly.
think that's
Well,
what
and
that's
it can't move forward to us until those things are signed on.
It's not supposed to.
It's not supposed to. Correct.
So we probably want to have, so if we're,
I'm cool with crossing that out.
It sounds from her note like it's just an extra step.
Yeah.
It's not something they
Yeah.
normally do,
so that's fine. I think that if we take that out, that's fine. If we are going to have a statement of, or some sort of checklist, do we want to have it all in one thing? Because it looks like the fire chief is going to need to make sure that as well. So
Yeah.
So one for planning, one for DPW, one for conservation.
So if that was
One
part
for
of the
fire.
application and it had those departments in their signature line,
Mhm. Yeah.
they could keep it all together so that we get one complete packet of information.
Yeah.
Does it
And
sound
so
alright?
and then police as well.
Yeah.
And engineer.
Yeah. I mean, there's quite a few departments you gotta run through. And I think it makes sense to have them all on one document. What do you think, Ed?
I'm just trying to, it's like a scavenger hunt for these people.
Yeah,
It is.
exactly. It is.
It is, and that's why it's like, it ends up being a scavenger. It's like I've done a few of these now, and I've ended up having to like track down all the different parts, and that's when I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I
Like,
guess
this
it's just
is-
not so important to me that they're all on the same piece of paper.
Yeah.
As long as we're hearing from all these different entities that it's good to go.
Mhm.
That's
And,
more
and
important.
they do that before they come to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out like what's easiest for the end user, like to be like, okay, I have a piece of paper and I know I have to have a signature on this line, or are they given some sort of open-ended like, okay, we're gonna need a letter from them. Like, well, who, what department, where is it? And, you know, if we can make it as clear and as simple as possible, is kind of what I was thinking. But you're right, that's them walking around with a clipboard at every meeting, but there's a process to it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know, sometimes, if it, Conservation Commission says fine, and then 20
Right.
months later, the construction's done, and they can't find their signature, and they're looking for the DPW guy to sign the exact same form. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be easier. 'Cause I agree with you, we want it to be easy for them,
Right.
that'd be my own concern.
Well, I also don't want them to get into a situation where they don't know that they have to talk to that department. And then they get to the end and they're like, okay, where's the Conservation Commission stuff? And then it goes back.
So maybe-
Because it always feels like somebody like adds something on, you know, okay, nice job with the department. Oh, did you talk to the DPW? Didn't really do that. And then they come up with some, like,
Yeah.
if they know ahead of time, they can be working on all four fronts at the same time, you know?
No, I'm just curious. Do we bind ourselves if we with the semantics of this, calling it a certificate of compliance? Is it something that needs to be notarized? Or can we just say approval from the following departments or something like
Yeah,
that?
so it's basically that they've looked at it and they've signed off on it.
Right.
If you can find better language than certificate of compliance.
I don't know. I just don't know if that binds us to any particular.
It's not a legal term, what's a firm? Damn, but,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, without doing any research, I don't think.
No. Just sounds.
It does sound very official.
Yeah.
is there something friendlier you would like to use?
I don't know, but I feel like the certificate of compliance should be within the application.
Yeah.
This piece.
So what about one document that is like, here's your certificate of compliance, and then it's DPW, planning board, fire
Yeah.
department, this, like, it's one document is your certificate of compliance.
Mhm.
And you've checked all the boxes with the 5 different departments.
Yeah.
And it allows, you know, the applicant to track that they talk to everybody as well.
Would you put like, Conservation Commission on there, if sometimes it's applicable, sometimes it's not?
Right, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. I think they're listed.
Okay, so here's,
So that regards the Conservation Commission, the stormwater permit certificate would have to be there, which is an actual document.
So there'd have to be some language on the signature sheet.
Mm-hmm. For each
Let
department.
them know about that.
Yeah.
I would say that what we, you know, one of the things we're gonna have to do is move, so if we do wanna have this piece be kind of like a checklist
Mhm.
of what you need to do, with the certificate of compliance, I think we're gonna have to spell out more clearly, where they have to go within that, so you know, so add like a step, I'm trying to find out where it would be. So maybe number 4 is shall submit all required documents and materials to planning department and other applicable departments listed prior to city council. So I think there would be a good place to say, you know, the certificate of compliance that is required needs to be signed off by planning, DPW, conservation, if appropriate, police, fire.
That's been the end game all along. It was a matter of making sure, like a lot of the other language, that yes, we should actually talk to, you know,
Right.
conservation. We should, you know, does it make sense to talk to the fire department? And it sometimes is because of how they've placed fire hydrants, you know, where the stop sign is in regards to this and parking situations, that it gives everybody a chance to look at it.
I wonder, just knowing where, you know, I mean, there's not a lot of places where new subdevelopments are gonna come, but,
No.
but, you know, one of the areas could be potentially over the aquifer. And
Right.
so do we wanna, so if conservation doesn't necessarily, the purview isn't really aquifer protection, we have a, so is that in there?
If there's no Conservation Commission stormwater permit certificate is in there.
Okay, so and I wonder within the stormwater permit if they would not have to go probably through the Aquifer Protection Committee.
Probably not. I think the stormwater permit actually covers all that because it's about how, that, what's the word for draining it out?
Permeates.
Yeah, yeah, because we did a whole big study for Lower Mill Pond and stuff.
Okay. Alright.
And that was from Jim Gracia. He's like, if not A, then B.
Okay.
And if not B, then A. Like, it's kind of gonna be one of those two things.
Sure. Sure. I just wanna, because when you take out, like if it's a big road, you take out a lot of surface area where, you know, there's, the rain would permeate and filter down into the aquifer. I just wonder if that would be addressed, because that could have an impact. But maybe I digress.
Well, I mean, I think you bring up a valid point because one of the big goals of this when I started was to get more miles on our streets because we get more money the more miles we have, and there are streets that we maintain and take care of that probably aren't listed
Right.
for our mileage. So we couldn't accept any more until we had a way to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, cards, horses, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
All right, so the next question,
There may need to be a note somewhere that this is as comprehensive as it can be, but may not encompass every.
Yeah, kind of like
You
a
know.
disclaimer.
yeah.
If it does need to go through the protection agency or somebody.
Right.
Something pops up that we didn't think about, just
Right.
something
Right. That,
that covers this.
yeah, in case someone's making a big thing over the
Well, and I
aquifer.
think, did I address that in special requirements? So these were some questions that Jess had that I didn't incorporate into that draft because they need to be discussed.
Okay.
This first section, that's language directly from the city solicitor. So I feel pretty
But she didn't put any
confident with
notes
that.
on that.
No. So number 2 is that all property taxes owed to the city for the open space lots, if any, must be paid before the city will recommend the street for acceptance. And she wrote, does this mean vacant lots or lands designated as protected open space? And my impression was protected open space. Because vacant lots would be owned by somebody. I mean, I thought it was kind of clear, but now I'm wondering what the question was.
Well,
Because what happens with developments is they give us some open space, like, oh, you get the round of it and the cul-de-sac, or you get the corner where the street sign, stop sign is, or.
and what was her question? Is this open
She was
space?
saying, does this mean a vacant lot? And it doesn't mean a vacant lot, because they would own, they're not giving us a vacant lot. The property owner would own a vacant lot. So I feel like the language can stand.
Okay, alright, so, but I think that this, I mean, what I get from reading this is that they need to be current on their taxes before we'll recommend, but that doesn't have, what I don't get from that is them donating, the open space for the street, like a cul-de-sac or something. I don't get that from that. I
Right.
get like,
So-
there's undeveloped lots, we wanna make sure that all the taxes are current before we say that the street is gonna be accepted.
Yeah, so anything that has to do with an open lot and this kind of development is gonna be completely handled by planning. That has nothing to do with like the street acceptance. We just put the language in there that if this particular developer owes us property taxes for any of those open lots, open space that he's gonna donate to the town as open space, then, you
I
know,
wonder-
they have to, basically they have to make sure they're
So
up to date on
if they
that.
donate them to the city for open space, I'm sure part of that donation process would be, getting current on whatever taxes they owe on that parcel, and then they wouldn't. I mean, should we just say, all property taxes owed to the city, if any, must be paid?
Yeah,
And just say, if this developer wants us to approve a street, then all property taxes should be paid.
sure. I
Is
mean,
that
Regardless if it's
r-
open space or
r-
not.
open space, non-open space, they need to be current on their taxes. Does that makes, I
All
feel like
property
that
taxes-
clarifies it for me. Is this, so just take out for the open space lots.
well, if we say to applicant, they could own multiple properties. They could hang up this particular request if they owed property taxes on something else, which may or may not matter.
Well, that might be a good incentive then. for
May
them
or
to
may
get-
not matter.
That might be a good incentive to get them to pay their taxes.
Okay, so if I just say, and just edit it this way, all property taxes owed to the city by the applicant, if any, but must be paid before the city will recommend.
Yeah, I mean, that
And
makes sense.
we'll just mix the whole thing,
Yeah.
okay. So here's another one. So in 3, at the bottom, plowing rates are determined by hour, rounded up to the nearest half hour, would be deducted from the bond monies prior to those funds being released back to the street acceptance petitioner. Those rates were all from the DPW. There's something that can be looked at every year and adjusted. But that was what they felt was the best way to do it. I was like, how do you do this? Do you do this by mile? Do you do this by,
Mhm.
they were like, no, we do it per hour. And Jessica has talked about what if they have a letter of credit, regarding lots. Most local developers cannot get a bond, better to invoice directly.
Yeah, so we could, I mean, but we could just build that in and say, let me see, provide snow prior to the acceptance of the property of record would be responsible for the cost incurred by the city. So you can say that, but, we don't have to say will be deducted, can be deducted from bonds, monies prior to these monies being released back to the street accepting petitioner, or will be directly billed by the city.
Yeah. Can be deducted from the bond monies prior or billed. By the city, and then any of the fees, they must be paid directly to the city, or they will be deducted from the performance bond.
If-
She
if-
said letters of credit.
Yeah.
They have to be paid.
So they just have to be paid before any of the above fees incurred by the property owner,
Prior to acceptance.
should be paid to the city before, street acceptance.
Great.
That's right there.
So those edits I made. This is a performance guarantee. Planning board will release the final performance guarantee minus any unpaid fees owed to the city, usually maintenance upon request of the developer. So it looks like she just wants to change the language there to performance guarantee, which I think is fine, but I just wanted to make sure there wasn't
Okay.
anything that I didn't know about it before I made that change.
So, she wants it just to be a performance guarantee? I think that's fine. Because I think performance guarantee is what they're using now, right? More if they, because not all of them have bond.
Right.
holding.
Okay. So this is an okay change. All right, everybody else talked about Mylar. She doesn't want Mylar, thinks the original should be. So I changed it.
Everybody else.
Hmm?
DPW and those people.
The register of deeds, like higher level. So, I mean, I changed this in the one that you're reading to PDF or 11 and a half by, or 11 by 17
Mhm.
document.
It'll be easier to
I
put that
think that-
online.
Right. I mean, I think that's easy enough to comply with. I don't see that. It's just some language that's thrown around with some other documents.
Well, it's like Mylar is, you have to go have a special printer, you have to get it from the
Right.
Register of Deeds, I think.
Yeah.
It's more expensive, so,
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
and if Jessica doesn't want it, then I think it just takes up a lot of space. They're big.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's what I thought. Yeah, her notes here, where we were talking about the guidelines and the certificate of compliance, they kind of come after, sorry, I ran out of paper, so I
That's
used
fine.
different paper. These we can sort out as we go through, like, guidelines on one side, ordinance on the other.
Mhm.
Great idea. And then, this certificate of compliance hasn't been created because
Right.
we hadn't put it all together, so.
And it seems like this would go in the application part,
Right, right,
because it's, like steps of what you have to do.
yeah.
So, and I think if we
So where
look
it
at.
says bond release, she just wants to change it to performance guarantee, because that's the language and the method that they use there.
Yeah. Because I can see these two pages and these two pages. So the procedures and the guidelines merging together into one kind of
Yep.
maybe a little bit pared down.
Right,
Maybe, I'm not exactly sure the formatting, whatever, that's, like, this is your baby, I'll figure that out. But I think that these two things naturally go together as part of an application packet where
Right.
you're like, okay, step one, I gotta do this. Step two, all right, now I have this stuff, I'm gonna mail it to this person.
and now that we've talked about it a couple of times, I think my initial thing was like, somebody might ask, like, how do you go about doing a street acceptance? So that was kind of like the rough guidelines, and then
Mhm.
the application package is a little bit more detailed.
Right.
Like, this is what you're gearing up for before you even get your application, or,
But hopefully if our application, if this little packet is clear and concise enough, then
Mhm.
even someone who's just kind of like fact finding would be able to look at the application and be like, oh, I know exactly what I need to do.
Right.
And it only took me 5 minutes. So,
Sweet.
So this is kind of an old school checklist that I put together initially.
And that's more,
The checklist you couldn't do until we were kind of done the document.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I can see
So
that.
it's just kind of, it's super rough draft.
and you know what else that checklist could have on it? On the back, it could have the sign-offs for the different departments.
Yeah.
You know?
And that can be something even the clerk can hang on to,
Yeah.
like, that stays with her their application. And I like the idea of it because the meetings that we hold are kind of sporadic. We don't have them as often as other communities do. So that way they can start talking to like 4 different departments at the same time and not have to wait 2 or 3 weeks in between each meeting, just to make it a little bit easier if they know ahead of time. So it's not like, okay, they get it done and then they have to go to the next department and they get back to the next department. So.
Okay.
Is it worth it for me to actually like, take one of these documents, like, right? That's what I want. Is that the last page?
Okay. So can we take one quick step back?
Yeah.
So under the street acceptance guidelines, number 1 says applicant will make a request for a certificate of compliance by a certified mail to the planning department. So they wouldn't be able to just come to the planning department and ask for an application and have that kind of sign-off sheet be attached. It would have to go via certified mail. Wouldn't that cost us more money to send that to them?
Well,
Is there-
certified mail is pretty cheap, but this is in accordance with section 9 of the subdivision rules and regs. Like, I pulled it right from there.
That in order for them,
So is this not referring to the new certificate of compliance?
Correct.
this is
Some other certificates.
some other certificate of compliance?
Yeah.
Definitely shouldn't use that language then.
Yeah, because if those are 2 different things, then, because I see, like, if I was building a subdivision, when I pulled my permits, it would make sense for me to be able to come and pick up, like, the application package and have that sign off, so I can be like, oh, I need to get these
Mhm.
done, and not.
Let me,
You wanna look at that?
yeah, let me look at that one, because, I mean, obviously, that was written over a year ago.
Yeah, because it also says requests for certificates of compliance must be submitted before public hearing, and then all correspondence should be sent to planning department, city clerk. Make a request via certified mail, so they would have to like send the certified mail to Barbara, and then she would say, so.
So that's actually what gets the ball rolling with the planning department, is that they're like, I'm moving this forward for a street acceptance.
Mhm.
So they send it to the planning department via certified mail saying, because planning department is their first stop.
So the applicant would make a request for a street acceptance via certified mail
Yeah.
to the planning, so,
You're
But-
right, that's exactly what the language should be.
cause otherwise it's, and then, let's see who's calling me here.
But I will research that and
Okay.
find out where I got that from, because you're right, that is.
So I could see. Again, like I could see this be part of that first 2 pages. Or, you know, like incorporated into that somehow,
Yeah.
towards the end.
Because we can make this, and we could make it a PDF that's a form that they could fill out, like, I know,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get people's heads exploding. We can still do it. What's going on?
I'm trying to communicate with my children. For some reason, my thing is not.
Have you tried emoji?
Yeah. Here we go.
I mean, that pretty much gets us through. One of the questions that seems to be hanging out there is if it's in ordinance, we don't really have any language in here that's kind of ordinance language, do we?
Well, we'll just. That can come next. Once we have like what we want to include in the ordinance, and then we can wordsmith it to fit within the section that it should and
Right.
make it sound like it belongs.
So.
Yeah, that was a big question I had is, what's the ordinance? Follow the application package?
Potentially.
Or else?
Right, I mean, that's.
I think parts of it would be more of the nuts and bolts of what needs to be in. So under street acceptance, like signed certificate of compliance needs to be received, and a copy of the stone-bound certification plans need to be on file. Just like kind of something that will set it into motion of the guidelines being followed. So there's some teeth to it.
Yeah.
Makes it part of the. I don't know exactly at this moment. I don't know exactly what we would say, but imagine there's a way that we could put that in there. I mean, you know, for example, like some of the things about the instruments suitable for recording running to inhabitants of the city of East Hampton for easements, like all the easement stuff could be put in within the ordinance because that fits, that makes sense. The deed or gift and trust of open space parcels makes sense.
Yeah, it's basically the procedures, actually.
Yeah, it's all within the procedures or and documentation.
Yeah.
And making sure all the different departments see it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the planning board's gonna be following they'll look at the ordinance as they to make sure that they're doing due diligence, I guess. But I don't think the ordinance piece. I don't think we need to.
Yeah, like number 1, under special requirements, the language from the attorneys, probably.
Mm-hmm. And it could just be, you know, like a small subsection, street acceptance, and I'm wondering, there would be a different procedure if a new public way was being built, and I think that's one of the things we might want to find out. So, like, because we don't want to say street acceptance under ordinance and have it just be specific to subdivisions. 'cause, you know, so, you know, for example, if something, changes in that part of town,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, some of the buildings get moved and, like, the street is gonna be moved and there's gonna be a new street put in, you know, for traffic flow or something, like, that might be a completely different process.
You bring up a really good point, because this says, this is for subdivision streets, and
Yeah.
if we wanna add some of our existing streets,
Yeah, yeah,
we're not gonna go through this process.
right. No. So, that's something we might wanna think about.
Well, yeah, because that was the end game.
What buildings are you moving?
Well, it would have to do with
He's amazing.
some of the resident rerouting Cottage Street a little bit. Not this part. This part would just be one way, but on the backside, rerouting it to kind of go around, maybe even towards like Liberty Street.
In front of the
And-
school and down past the basketball.
Yeah,
Makes perfect sense.
yeah.
Everybody wants it to happen.
Yeah,
But
because
it
that
goes in front of a school.
Well, the school's not going to be, you know, there for much longer. So, I mean, because I think we are approved for our elementary fact finding.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Oh, we're approved to submit plans. We haven't
Yeah.
Yeah.
chosen yet.
Yeah. No.
I would-
So.
That's the one thing, if Humiston doesn't deliver, that would Republican governor.
We better. I mean, we need a new elementary school really badly. All my kids went to Maple, and I appreciate it, but I also appreciate the fact that my kids went to elementary school without a play, like without grass, without a gym, without a cafeteria, and a school that was built in the 1800s. So, you know.
Are you going to those meetings?
No, because it's like 9 in the morning or something. Like all the school, I can't.
I want to have them
Teacher.
come in and give city council an update, because nobody can go to those meetings.
Yeah, nobody can go. It would be nice to hear what's going on.
Yeah.
But that will be really interesting to see what happens when. I mean, I see cobblestone, you know, like walkable streets, like that could be very cool. I mean, it really is so narrow. Like,
Yeah. That's something
one
to-
way would be a good compromise. Take a little bit to get used to, I guess.
Just hearing any kind of progressive idea about happening in town fills me with joy, quite frankly, because we've just finished all of these projects we don't have.
Right.
We basically just finished Mayor Mike's projects.
Right.
We have nothing else coming down.
I have some ideas on Cottage Street too. All those houses, I would love to buy those houses and work with the owners to, because I think we could make it like a really cool collaborative union.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so listen to my plan here.
Okay.
Work